And when you're not speaking, please put your microphone on mute. Thank you. I'll call the roll call, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Once your name is called, please ensure your camera is turned on. Please unmute, state your name, your attendance, and then please place your mic back on mute. Thank you. Caller Kenneth O'Flynn.
Unsure.
Caller John Maher.
Unsure.
Caller Ted Tynan.
Unsure.
Caller Joe Kavanagh.
Unsure.
Caller Oliver Moran.
Unsure.
Caller Ger Keohane.
Unsure.
Caller Tony Fitzgerald.
Unsure.
Caller Mick Nugent.
Unsure.
Caller John Sheehan.
Unsure.
Caller Kenneth Collins.
Unsure.
Caller Fiona Ryan.
Unsure.
Caller Damien Boylan.
Unsure.
Caller Des Cahill.
Unsure.
Caller Lorna Bogue.
Unsure.
Caller Mary Rose Desmond.
Unsure.
Caller Kieran McCarthy.
Unsure.
Caller Terry Shannon.
Unsure.
Caller Deirdre Ford.
Present.
Caller Mick Finn. Caller Dan Boyle.
He's just having difficulty getting in.
Caller Sean Martin.
Unsure.
Caller Shane O'Callaghan.
Unsure.
Caller Paddy Deline.
Unsure.
Caller Fiona Kerrins.
Unsure.
Caller Fergal Dennehy.
Unsure.
Caller Derry Canty.
Unsure.
Caller Kalesh Finn.
Unsure.
Ard Vera.
So,
Caller Gareth Kelleher.
Unsure.
Caller Thomas Maloney.
Unsure.
And Caller Olin Ring.
Unsure.
we have a quorum.
To Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Direct, we beseech thee, O Lord, our actions by thy holy inspirations, and carry them on by thy gracious assistance, that every word and work of ours may always begin from thee and by thee, and happily ended through Christ our Lord. Amen. Pause now for a moment's reflection. Karamagov. Okay. I would just like to, I suppose, notify members that, albeit this is our budget meeting is taking place on Teams, and the majority, maybe 99% of the council are tuning in via a virtual platform. I, as Lord Mayor, I am in the chamber. Members of the executive are in the chamber also, and members of the finance committee or the finance division are in the chamber as well, ready for any codes checking and stuff like that. So obviously, with the COVID numbers on the rise, I would just ask the members if it's suitable to the members and suitable to the meeting tonight. Please just bear in mind that there is a number of people here meeting physically, and if we could keep the meeting to the agenda and try to get through it and expedite the meeting as quickly as possible. Thank you very much. I would just like to advise the members that all speeches will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. So how the meeting will be run is, as I said, speeches will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. Any proposed budget amendments to be discussed. Each service division must be approved with a proposer and a seconder, and once all the divisions are approved, final motions are voted on. I now call on the Chief Executive to present her budget report on the 2022 draft budget for Cork City Council. Councillor Finn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, I was just wondering will you advise us when we can move our amendments? I just don't want to miss
I
it.
will, of course. I will, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Members of Council, this evening I'm presenting a balanced draft budget to you as the members for the year 2022. The budget represents an investment in the delivery of services in the city of €240 million. This is an increase of approximately 14 million compared to the 2021 budget, and the main contributors to the increase in expenditure in the areas of increased services for homelessness, increase in CAF MTR, increase in funding for roads resurfacing, and increase in payroll costs. As a result of COVID-19, the general economic climate and the state of both national and local finances, as we're all aware, have been severely impacted. Our income sources have come under pressure, and this uncertainty will continue in 2022 due to the changing COVID situation. In 2021, as in 2020, certain businesses received rates waivers because of COVID-19. We also processed small business grant schemes that were introduced to help business to trade under very difficult circumstances and conditions that COVID had imposed. Such schemes and waivers are unlikely to be available in 2022. The bringing of a balanced budget before you this evening has involved taking into consideration the views and the priorities of the members as expressed in the numerous Finance and Estimate Committee meetings and at the Corporate Policy Group meetings. At a very early stage of the budgetary process, members were advised of the difficult financial constraints that the budget would be based upon, and to their great credit, each and every one of you engaged with the budget process, and your contributions and suggested solutions were of great benefit to the finalising of this draft budget. I'd like to thank you, the members, for your valuable assistance, your contributions, and above all, your patience in this process, because it has been very, very difficult and different this year. With the national LPT revaluation in 2021, the local authorities had to facilitate the LPT variation decision before the new revenue deadline of August 31st. In practical terms, this meant that a July decision for local authorities. The 31st of August deadline will only apply in the revaluation year and for other years, and the deadline is due to move to mid-October. The statutory meeting to set the local adjustment factor for the local property tax for the City Council was held, as you know, on July the 26th. At that meeting, you, the members, increased the local adjustment factor on LPT from 7.5 to 9%. The €1.9 million generated because of the increase in the local adjustment factor will fund LACs, 300,000 per LAC, and the sports capital grants to a value of €400,000. The funding of LACs is an important milestone for the members and for this council, and it will allow you, the members, to see meaningful developments in your own local areas. Cork City Council became a self-funding local authority from the LPT perspective because of the boundary extension. In effect, the excess funding from LPT will be €2.95 million, which will be used in housing, revenue and capital services. In relation to commercial rates, the income from commercial rates represents 41% of the total income for this authority. There is a proposal not to adjust the rate or to change the rate or any increase in the 2022 budget as presented to you. The government introduced a 12-month waiver for rates for certain businesses in 2021, and in respect of 2022, we expect that there will be no waiver scheme in place to support those businesses. As we're all aware, businesses are struggling trying to meet the demands imposed on them because of COVID-19, and this uncertainty will have a major impact on our rates and how they can be collected, or indeed how collectible they will be in the year 2022. It is intended that the rates incentive scheme will continue, whereby a grant is given to all compliant ratepayers with certain criteria are met. The scheme is aimed at small and medium enterprises who make up 57% of our ratepayer base. The grant in 2022 will be 3% of the annual bill to a maximum bill of €4,000. There will be no application process involved. Rate accounts which meet the qualifying criteria will have the grant automatically applied as credit to their account. In order to qualify for the grant, ratepayers must have their accounts settled in full by November the 30th, 2020 and have no outstanding arrears on their accounts. Ratepayers that pay their account on a payment plan will also qualify for the grant. We as City Council will continue to monitor the collection of rates in 22, and we intend to give every assistance to our ratepayers as they settle their liabilities promptly. We will also look at alternative rate incentive schemes to see which one will best suit Cork City Council ratepayers for the future. City Council has a very high percentage of ratepayers who have an annual rates liability of up to €4,000. This will be taken into consideration when reviewing the rates incentive scheme during 2022. During 2021, the government introduced the Small Business Assistance Grants for businesses who were not eligible for the government COVID-19 restriction support scheme and Fáilte Ireland Business Continuity Grant or other direct sectoral grant schemes. This scheme aimed to help businesses with their fixed costs like their rent, their utility bills, and this was administered by our rates department. In relation to water services, the water services budget is presented on the basis that the full cost of the management and operation of the water and wastewater services for the city in 2022 are recouped in full from Irish Water. As the members are aware, we operate the service on behalf of Irish Water through a service level agreement. In relation to housing, the Housing for All plan was published by the government in September of 2021, and the City Council has been to the forefront in actioning and successfully advancing several acquisitions and construction projects to deliver additional social housing units in our city. City Council continues to advance strong delivery performance with construction completed on several schemes across the city. In addition, under the competitive dialogue process, we have a further 146 homes having been granted Part 8 permission, and they will proceed to construction by the end of this year, with 231 new homes under construction and several other projects comprising of 400 units are advancing through the design and tendering stages. During 2021, as an organisation, we continued to deliver an apartment energy efficient retrofit programme and bringing its delivery to more than 200 apartments throughout the city. Funding was approved for the refurbishment of 148 properties, and the council, in participating in its with European partners, has been participating in reducing the carbon emissions from 10 properties using electric storage heaters, solar panels, batteries, and algorithms that target the consumption of electricity to when the CO2 content of the grid is low. The need to increase awareness in reducing carbon emissions and useful steps to achieve the reduction is being developed in the Regional Action Plan by the City Council in 2021. Improving energy efficiency of our housing stock has benefits for our tenants, including better health outcomes, better quality of life and lower energy bills, thus reducing the incidences of fuel poverty. In relation to our housing maintenance programme, work is continuing on the various projects that are being funded by the Housing Maintenance 11 million loan, and provisions for repayment of that loan have been provided for in the 2022 budget. To date, over 1,500 properties have benefited from measures facilitated by this programme, and additional provision is included to meet the Council's liability for loan charges arising from housing capital and advanced land purchasing programmes. In relation to the provision of disabled person grants and disability works, the budget as presented provides a budget of 2.2 million on disabled person grants to private homeowners, of which 80% is funded. And in relation to works on our own housing stock, the programme will be limited to the level of grant that we receive from central government, but we expect that the spend will be in the region of 738,000, of which 90% will be funded. As you are all aware, with the increase in the number of cycle lanes across the city centre and pedestrianisation of our streets, over 440 car parking spaces has been lost to the city over the last 2 years. This represents a significant loss of income to the city, and the loss of one on-street parking space will not automatically guarantee an increase in off-street parking occupancy. Parking charges will increase for the first time since 2017. The charge for Paul Street car park will increase from €2.30 to €2.70 an hour, while the charge for North Main Street will increase from €1.70 to €2.30 per hour. City Council still provides the cheapest car parking in the city centre, and in addition, on-street car parking parked by phone will increase from €2 to €2.50. On-street parking will need bylaws in order to effect this change, and so the full year annual increase will not be possible for 2022, but obviously we will bring them to you as the earliest date possible. In relation to roads and transportation, as the members are aware, we received an allocation of €29 million from the NTA in relation to sustainable transport measures. They included upgrades for example, Skihard Road, Corraheen to Carrigahan Greenway Passage, Greenway Project Phase 1, South Quay Cycle Lane, South Mall Cycle Lanes, Melbourne Road, Glasheen Road and Magazine Road, Cycle Link, bollards on additional cycle lane and parklets. And in addition to that, we've received funding from Fáilte Ireland in relation to weatherproofing and outdooring infrastructure in the city centre. There will be an additional spend in public lighting in 2022, followed the adoption of the new public lighting framework, which was produced following the additional public lights which were taken on as part of the boundary extension. Priority is given to the maintenance of the main traffic routes and to footpaths with the greatest footfall, especially in the commercial areas under the resurfacing and footpathing renewal contracts. The provision of 241,000 has been maintained in respect of ward funds. In relation to supports to events, community arts and sports grants, overall the combined funds across the above areas amount to €2.3 million. A contribution of €931,800 has been provided for the arts bodies. This includes a contribution made to the Opera House, as well as this, a provision of €259,800 has been included for grants to be made to the Arts Committee of Council, and a provision of €270,000 to be made for community grants. The budget as presented also provides sports grant of 400,000, amenity grants of 200,000 and tidy district grants of 85,600. The sum of 160,100 has been provided on the Creative Ireland Fund and 100,000 for commemorations. It is the City Council's aim that the Cork commemorations will help us to learn more about contemporary society by giving a deeper understanding of how Irish society was shaped in the past. The additional sum that was provided in 2021 for schools' meal scheme is to extend into the transfer area has been maintained for 2022. A sum of 1.5 million has been set aside for the local area committees in the budget, and this equates to 300,000 per committee. In relation to economic enterprise development and environment, as we all know that we are one of the biggest employers in the city as a public and also as a public service delivery agency, play a significant role in facilitating initiatives aimed at increasing the attractiveness of the city for economic activity. In this regard, the 2022 budget provides for the Economic Development Fund of 780,400. The Local Enterprise Office plays a key role in supporting micro-enterprise sectors in the city and in particular responding to the business challenges encountered due to COVID-19. The LEO has approved funding for 31 companies for feasibility, priming, business expansion, employment or innovation. It also promotes innovation and entrepreneurship by supporting clients at various events like Local Enterprise Week and the school's enterprise programmes. The importance of the city centre as a critical asset to the economy of the city region is recognised by the provision of 205,700 in the budget to support the initiatives under the city centre strategy. The review of the city development plan is ongoing, and the initial stages was conducted during COVID-19 public health crisis and has been very successful in terms of getting people involved. Work on the new development plan includes a number of studies and strategies being carried out, which will inform the preparation of the draft plan. The Climate Action Unit is providing governance and management for all of the climate actions for which Cork City Council is responsible under the Climate Change Adaptation Strategy 19 to 24 and those contained in the Climate Charter. In 22, the priority will be to prepare our Climate Change Adaptation Strategy from 22 to 27. Provision is made as the members are aware, last year for the Executive Tree Officer, and this year in addition the Biodiversity Officer is also included in the budget for 2022. Several additional appointments are made in all departments to cope with the demand for additional services, and appointments are made across directorates, corporate affairs and international relations, community culture placemaking, housing and operations directorate. The full-time appointment of a vacant homes officer will also be considered in 22. We currently have the position filled on a part-time basis with the resource shared between two functions, and we will address this in 2022. Significant investment of 450,000 is being provided for the ICT department to cope with the increasing demands of online services, remote working, but also in the support of the organisation in preparation and the avoidance of any cyber security incidences. Obviously, this is a very prudent investment in this particular area. So in conclusion, Lord Mayor, the budget as presented has been produced following a significant effort being made by the councillors in the Finance and Estimates Committee under the able and capable chairmanship of Councillor Sean Martin and all of the members of the council management team and their staff. The uncertainty around COVID-19, its management, containment and the financial implications as a result are challenges that we have not faced before. We have had to make certain assumptions in compiling this budget, which may prove to be inaccurate, but they have been made with the best estimates available to us at the time of the budget preparation. We will be constantly reviewing these assumptions as we progress through 2022, and if the need arises and we do need to change, we will obviously be discussing that with you. And that is obviously totally dependent on any prevailing circumstances. The proposed budget provides funding measures aimed at addressing some strategically important areas and provides a reasonable balance across the competing objectives of developing the social, cultural, economic, environmental and infrastructural needs of the city in a socially inclusive manner that the Council is charged with progressing. I'd like to thank all of the Directors of Services and Heads of Functions and their staff for their work. I would like to thank you, Lord Mayor, the Corporate Policy Group, the Finance and Estimates Committee and all the members of Council for your assistance in preparing this budget. And finally, I'd like to convey a great thank you to John Hallahan, the Chief Financial Officer, Barry O'Hare, and all of the finance team for their leadership in this process. Lord Mayor and members, I recommend the adoption of the 22 budget as presented to you tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, before we move on, just for note of the members, we will now, I will now, just before I open it to the floor, just a few hands gone up there. Just like to say on behalf of myself, I'd like to thank the Chief Executive, John Hallahan and all the finance team, and I'd like to also thank Councillor Sean Martin for the work and the heavy lifting that has been done in the Finance and Estimates Committee the last number of months. We've all been presented with various codes, and sometimes it can seem a mammoth task, but I think there was a lot of heavy lifting done prior to this meeting, and I just want to acknowledge that. So thank you all. Councillor Sean Martin.
I'm after setting it up here.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just I would like to pay tribute to the various directors of services, in particular John Hallen and Barry O'Hare, but also all the directors of service. So I would, in my long time in council, I think there's been a much more open engagement with councillors in relation to finances and other issues that come before council. And we had various meetings in the finance committee, and I think overall we worked together. It was pure harmony from both councillors and management, and like nobody's happy with every budget now, Mayor, but I think we came to a balanced conclusion in the end. And on behalf of the Fianna Fáil Group, I'd just like to propose the budget for 2022. As already said by the manager, it's an investment in services of 240 million, and that's an increase of 40 million on the previous budget. And the main increases are homelessness in particular, an additional 4.4 million for homelessness, which comes basically from government, and we top it up. an increase in CAF payment of 3.9 million, increase in funding for roads of 0.4, and an increase in payroll of 4.8. And if you needed any to bear out what the Finance Committee has achieved, Lord Mayor, I just take one programme, the support to events, community, arts and sports grants. There was initially a 17% cutback in those programmes, and tonight we have the whole 100% back in, and the overall combined funds across the above area is 2.3 million, which includes a contribution of 931,800 for the arts bodies. That includes the Opera House and other theatres like that. There's also a provision of 259,800 for grants made by the Arts Committee of Council, and 250,000 100% back in for community grants. The budget also provides for the following: sports grants 400,000, community grants 200,000, tidy district grants 85,600. And the Finance Committee allowed the councillors to look at the various projects that were cut and put back in those projects that the councillors felt were having the biggest hit on the ground. A sum of 160,100 was provided for under the Creative Ireland Fund, and 100,000 for commemorations. And the Commemorations Committee under Paul Moyne has continued, and yourself, Lord Mayor, has continued to work well under the circumstances given what was happening with the COVID. An additional sum was also provided in 2021 for the school meals that we had to extend into the new city area, and that's been kept at the figure to the 50% recuperation on that. And I suppose most important from a council's perspective is we ring-fenced the 1.5 million for local area committees, and this is an item that came up, and various councils felt there was no point having local areas committee if you didn't have a budget, so we locked that in as well. And I think, and I'd like to be brief on the national fund, I think we need to give credit to government as well. The business funding for 2020-2021, there was a rates waiver of 54 million, a business rates grant of 37 million, hospitality grants of 650,000, urban ammunition of 670,000 to be spent in 2022. Outdoor dining infrastructure 1.5 million for 5 streets. Outdoor performance 200,000. City Council was also successful in securing URDF funding, 46 million for the Grand Parade quarter and 355 million for Docklands. City Council was also reimbursed to the tune of 7.7 million in 2021 for 2020 in relation to COVID-related areas. That was 2.5 million for cash incurred for spending on COVID, and 5.4 for the loss of income and local incomes, mainly parking. And also, I suppose, public sector investment, funding in place going forward. Dunkettle, 140 million. Bus Connects, 200 million. CCMS, 10 million. Flooding and public realm, 140 million. Social housing, 270 million. Crawford Arts, 28 million. Parks, at the Marina Park, 6.4 million. And I'm sure, Lord Mayor, we will find the 50,000 within that budget to put in the non-return value that's down there. Event Centre, 50 million. The Lehigh funding, 32.5. Rail electrification, 185. And I just finishing, Lord Mayor, the N28 220, the airport, 44 million. So I think we need to put the budget in context of what we've got from central funding and government. And I've never, in my 20 odd years in City Council, seen such an investment programme in the city going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I'll just advise members, there was just a question that Councillor Finn brought beforehand. If the proposed any proposed budget amendments may be brought forward at this time, Councillor Finn, and the rest of the elected members. Councillor Des Cahill, please. And I might ask the members, once you finish speaking, could you please take your hands down? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I suppose on behalf of the Fine Gael group, and I suppose as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, I would like to formally second Councillor Martin's proposal to adopt the budget as presented to us tonight by the Chief Executive. It would be remiss of me not to thank the Chief Executive in particular for running the team as well as she does. It's been an extraordinary 18 months behind us. I think when a lot of people would say to us who aren't involved in council, I don't really follow what councils do, I think the list of what we do as outlined by the Chief Exec, it's an awful lot more than plot holes. People tend to think that the council is very narrow, a narrow job spec. It doesn't. It has a very wide and varied job spec, which all need funding. And this is my pleasure of being my 13th budget. And it's really only in the last 4 to 5 budgets, really 4 budgets, that we've actually started to see real spending and real increases across the board. And despite what's happened to the country, and what's still happening, because it's a very frightening time still with COVID at the state that it is. It's very comforting to have this increase again. Each year that we increase, the expectation for what we do increases with it. So it's always difficult if there's a pullback in any direction. But the overall spend of this budget is higher than last year. I think if anybody watching this or anybody discussing this has to answer one simple question, I think everybody here could look out their door within 100 meters, see something being done by the council. So it's a huge amount of area that we now cover. I think it's been covered exceptionally well. Naturally, we'd all prefer bigger budgets to do more work, but I think we have to acknowledge the work that is being done. Sean has gone through a lot of figures there, and I think I always kind of bring up the capital budget as well is enormous. I mean, the revenue budget, capital budget for housing and for roads projects and bus connects, et cetera, is enormous. And it's a multiple of the revenue budget that we're doing tonight. The work, the building that's been done throughout the city is phenomenal. I, as many of you, walk around the city regularly. Last Sunday, I went around early before people got into town, and to see the amounts of sites that are cleared and ready, projects on the go, all done through various stages of cooperation with the City Council, and none of that can happen without a budget. I think it's also worth noting that the Council has a very robust audit committee, so to reassure people that the procedures are correct and they're in place, there's an external audit committee that's 3 members of Council are part of and 4 external members, and it scrutinises exactly where our money has been spent, how it's been spent, and the procedures involved. So for people to be rest assured that the large sums of money that we deal in are dealt with appropriately. I'm very glad on behalf of the Fine Gael group to second this tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cahill. Councillor Cletfin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to agree with the 2 previous speakers. I want to thank Chief Executive Anne Doherty and her team, John Hallahan and Barry O'Hare in particular, for the engagement that they've had with councillors. I'm sure it can be frustrating for them when we're all asking so many questions, but it's a testament to their openness and transparency that they have fully engaged in the process. You will know that the Green Group has proposed that there should be a restoration of the rateable valuation to the 2019 rate. And I am proposing that tonight as an amendment to the budget presented. We feel that there are, even though the budget is larger than 2020, it still sees significant cuts to certain very important areas that we would want to protect. Public conveniences being one of them, road traffic signalling is another, and also footpaths. So we would have supplied these codes to the executive, so I don't want to bore people with all of them, but we would be proposing that the money that would be generated by a very small change to the rateable valuation would actually protect very important services that the public actually needs. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finn. You have proposed an amendment to the budget to increase the commercial rate or the ARV by 0.003%, resulting in an additional income of 250,000 expenditure on the following service divisions and subcommittees, which were highlighted to the members on the screen right now. So proposed by Councillor Finn. Can I get someone to second that?
I second that, Lord Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Oliver Moran. Do we have an agreement on that amendment?
Vote.
Vote.
Chair, I think there's one small change. It's at 0.003%. It's 0.3%.
My apologies. Yeah. My apologies. I can't read my own writing. Sorry. 0.3%.
I think that is how it's written, Chair. But
yeah. Okay. Perfect. What's there? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Vote all.
Once your name is called, please ensure your camera is turned on. Please unmute, state your name and your voting preference, and then please place your mic back on mute. Thank you. Caller Kenneth O'Flynn.
Against increasing the commercial rate.
Corlord John Maher,
For.
Corlord Ted Tynan,
Abstain.
Corlord Joe Kavanagh,
Against?
Corlord Oliver Moran,
For, Lord Mayor.
Corlord Jerk Johan,
Against.
Corlord Tony Fitzgerald,
Against, Lord Mayor.
Corlord Mick Nugent,
Gwynna.
Corlord John Sheehan,
Against.
Corlord Kenneth Collins,
Gwynna.
Corlord Fiona Ryan,
For.
Corlord Damien Boylan,
Against.
Corlord Des Cahill,
Against?
Corlord Lorna Bogue,
If over.
Corlord Mary Rose Desmond,
Against.
Corlord Kieran McCarthy,
Against?
Corlord Terry Shannon,
Against.
Corlord Deirdre Ford,
Against.
Corlord Mick Finn,
Against.
Corlord Dan Boyle,
Give over.
Corlord Sean Martin,
Gwynna.
Corlord Shane O'Callaghan,
Against.
Corlord Paddy Deneen,
For.
Corlord Fiona Cairns,
Gwynna.
Corlord Fergal Dennehy,
Against.
Corlord Jerry Canty,
Against.
Corlord Colette Finn,
If over.
Ard Vera,
Against an increase in commercial rates.
Corlord Garrett Kelleher,
Gwynna.
Corlord Thomas Maloney,
Against.
and Corlord Orlin Ring.
Against.
Gramargus Corlori, it's just been tallied there at the moment. Bear with me, please. Thank you. Thank you. So we have 7 for the amendment, 23 against, and 1 abstention. The proposed amendment is rejected. Thank you. Councillor Ted Tynan, please. Ted?
Okay, I'm here.
Sorry.
Thanks. Good Ardbera. I wish to vote against the budget, Ardbera, but before I give the reasons why, I would like to thank the Directorate, John Halloran and Barry O'Hare, John Hallahan and Barry O'Hare, and the other directors within the City Council for doing the best they can with a budget that I maintain is inadequate. And very briefly, I'll give a number of reasons why. First of all, central government has left Cork City Council short several million euro to enable them to do the work that they wish to do. And I am constantly listening to comments from within the organisation when I put down a motion such as the housing crisis, private renters, motions in my own area above St. Killian School, Skullcara, motions in relation to traffic calming, very serious issues in relation to speeding traffic, in relation to traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, etc. And I maintain that Cork City Council should be receiving several millions extra in to make the streets of our city safe to walk on, And for instance, take the situation St. Luke's Cross last Friday afternoon when there was a serious crash. There was at least 2 cars involved, and there may have been a third, demolishing signs in the middle of the St. Luke's Junction. Again, this is the result of lack of proper attention to supervise the speeding of traffic on that road. I have a motion gone in at the moment. And finally, I'd just like to issue a word of warning in relation to the negotiations going on at the moment between Irish Water and the local authorities and the government, where Irish Water are attempting to take 3,500 staff out of Cork City Council. Number one, it will lead to the privatisation of our water, sewer systems and wastewater treatment. It will also take away skilled staff out of the City Council, and it will also have a devastating effect on the ability of local authorities such as Cork City Council to deliver to the citizens of the city.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tynan. Councillor Paddy Deneen.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Yeah, just to thank the CEO and her team for presenting us with the budget tonight. I think we do have some tough times ahead, even though within a large city and a larger income, we're still facing a shortfall to deliver the services that the public are used to. Hence the reason why we have to have cuts made across the board. So I've looked intensively over that over the last week, to be fair, and while it is being done as fairly as is possible, given the situation, to be fair to everyone, thanks to the Finance Committee and headed up by Sean Martin. But there still is a big problem, and the big problem we have with our budget is the payroll. At the end of the day, we have the lump sums and pensions coming. We have to meet on a yearly basis, and to be honest, if this continues, we will implode. Once we hit the 95 million mark there or thereabouts, this council will be no more good. We will never be able to provide any services whatsoever. So with that said, I'd just like to take, nothing we can do about that, but I would like to take this opportunity to call on my colleagues whose parties are in government to talk to your leaders and to let them know exactly what the situation is. And this isn't just us, it's not a city council problem, it's a state body problem across the whole nation. So it's something we need to watch with our spending. We need to watch the payroll, and we need to be very, very careful, because we cannot source funding to cover that amount of money in the next 5, 6, 7 years. And we are set to implode if it's not being addressed accordingly by central government.
Please, Councillor.
But overall, yeah, lads, there's a few amendments coming our way, so that we're going to be jigging the funds, robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. But overall, well done to everyone involved. I will be supporting the budget. I think it's as balanced as it can be, to be fair, considering the situation. And well done to all. Thanks, Norman.
Thank you very much. That's time, please, Councillor. Just to be fair to Councillor Deneen, as I stated at the outset, now is the time for any amendments to be brought forward, and as the previous one. And I do understand that, Councillor Deneen, you have made contact. You have proposed an amendment. Is that correct?
That is correct, Lord. Yeah.
Would you, if you, can we possibly get that up on the screen for the members to see? Thank you. Okay, so this amendment is to relocate 83,800 euros from various budget codes. My understanding is to do with the fire service. I'm correct in saying that, Councillor Deneen?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Proposed by Councillor Deneen. Has this been seconded by any other councillor?
I'll second it, Lord Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor John Maher. Thank you, Councillor. Do we have an agreement on this amendment?
Vote all.
Vote all.
Vote all. Okay, thank you. Vote all.
Coror Kenneth O'Flynn.
For.
Coror John Maher.
For.
Coror Ted Tynan.
Abstain.
Coror Joe Kavanagh.
Against.
Coror Oliver Moran.
Against.
Coror Jerk Johan.
Against.
Coror Tony Fitzgerald.
Against.
Corlor McNugent,
Gwynna.
Corlor John Sheehan,
Against.
Corlor Kenneth Collins,
Gwynna.
Corlor Fiona Ryan,
For.
Corlor Damien Boylan,
Against.
Corlor Des Cahill,
Against.
Corlor Lorna Bogue,
Against.
Corlor Mary Rose Desmond,
Against.
Corlor Kieran McCarthy,
Against.
Corlor Terry Shannon,
Against.
Corlor Deirdre Ford,
Against.
Corlor Mick Finn,
For.
Corlor Dan Boyle,
Gwynna.
Corlor Sean Martin,
Gwynna.
Corlor Shane O'Callaghan,
Against.
Corlor Paddy Deneen,
For the fire service.
Corlor Fiona Kerrans,
Against.
Corlor Fergal Dennehy,
Against.
Corlor Derry Canty,
Against.
Corlor Colette Finn,
Against.
Ord Vera,
Gwynna.
Corlor Garrett Kelleher,
Gwynna.
Corlor Thomas Maloney,
For.
and Corlor Olin Ring.
Big winner.
Ramagat Corlori, the tallies are being done there. Bear with me, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. So for the amendment proposed by Councillor Deneen and seconded by John Maher, there are 6 for the amendment, 24 against and 1 abstention. The amendment is rejected. Thank you. Councillor McNugent, please.
Good morning, good. I suppose Sinn Féin group, we like to be associated with, I suppose, thanks to everybody in the executive and John, Barry, Mark in finance and Sean Martin for all the work out there. And there was numerous meetings took place. We're in a similar situation as last year. Started off with a 5 million odd deficit, and that's what it was. And it was brought down to a period, where while we have a balanced budget, we still have over 1.4 million in cuts, and almost 700,000 are there in operations. And senior city council officials have themselves said that can be minimised is the cuts, particularly I think in the operations in the day-to-day delivery of council services. And we may not have been at this point if we'd had reimbursement that we did get last year for COVID-related costs and the loss of income. The figures I got last week would have showed almost €4 million, and perhaps we wouldn't be in the place we are tonight out there. And I think Cork City Council, I think local authorities deserve better out there from the government. And that money may come back next year. It may come back, and hopefully it does. But it shows that local authorities aren't getting, and it's not going out there with a begging bowl approach. It's the support local authorities need, alluded to by Ted earlier. And to be fair, we have a growing city, we have an ambitious city. Some that was referenced earlier by earlier speakers referenced the capital budget rather than the revenue budget tonight. So there is ambition there, but I think we are being let down. What we're being faced with tonight is proposals to put up rates. I think it's the wrong time. We got proposals to move, cuts from one area to the other. Paddy put his proposal, but as he said, there's Rob and Peter to pay Paul, and you're talking about the fire service, but where the money was coming out of. And that almost 1.5
please, Councillor.
5 million out of there. I know it's been spread around as many cuts, but it's going to affect the council. I'll just conclude the last number of days. We're having commemorations, and it's a pity the way we're not in City Hall tonight, but understandable.
Time, please, Councillor.
Barry, and he stood up for his country and his people to protect his people. I don't think the budget tonight does that enough, Alvera.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Nugent. Can Councillor Fiona Ryan, please?
Thanks. Yeah, first I want to extend my acknowledgement of the hard work done in preparing the budget, and that the budget laid out before us has been done in good faith as a means of trying to provide the best services within the confines of funding constrictions. But that being said, the budget frames the entire year ahead of us in many ways, not just in terms of the money available to the council to provide the services communities deserve, but also in every committee, SPC, LAC and beyond. And this is fundamentally an austerity budget. Cuts to our day-to-day services already insufficient to meet the demands of the city. There is a lot of self-congratulations towards increased spending, but that's in the context of a much larger city and a 15 years of an absence of even basic maintenance of our services and amenities we're still catching up on. Like much of the drum banging around the increases in housing stock being delivered, of which congratulations is due, it is in the context of a demand that far outstrips even the good work being done. Democracy works if you let it. A paper done by Dr. Mary Murphy of Maynooth University found 8% of Irish public spending occurs at local government level, compared to an EU average of over 23%. And that a quarter of the Irish spend is not fully under local authority control. And of course, we've seen the anger at this situation in Cork specifically this year through the anger at the robot trees and to a lesser extent in previous years, infrastructure projects such as Mary Elms Bridge, which of course is a very nice infrastructure development for the city, but it's actually indicative of why local democracy remains practically non-existent in Ireland. Funding grants that can only be used within a tiny remit under a use it or lose it approach that leaves the public shaking their heads. The funding mechanisms of local authorities in Ireland are just not fit for purpose and are a product of decades of successive governments attacking local democracy in order to best implement cuts, austerity, and a general race to the bottom. And now, much is made about today being the only day councillors can exert the remaining power we have and to not go along with the budget, is framed as somehow a rejection of the remaining power afforded to us. But what power do we actually have? Paddy had it right. It's Roddy Peter.
Please, Councillor.
No, it's 2.5 minutes. I've been monitoring this myself. I'll take my extra 30 seconds. Now, much is made about today being the only day councillors can exert that power. But it does nothing to tackle the fundamental power that exists. We do not have the money to provide the full services this city deserves. The freedom to cut one service to bolster another, and only within the confines of a pre-arranged budget before us, is not democratic or fair. Until this council is given the power to both fund and direct funds in a manner that this council feels is priority, and not in funding schemes dumped on us in a use it or lose it way, holding us hostage to the priorities of central government, which may not align with the priorities of this council, will continue to undermine public confidence going forward. And on this reason, I'll be voting against the budget.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dan Boyle, please.
Thank you, Vera. I think it's significant to note that the overall spending in this budget is close on €250 million, and that befits a city of Cork's size and our significance in the role of the country. I think Councillor Ryan is right to a certain extent in that how we compile where money comes from and the independence that local authorities have is compromised, and it's something change at a national government level, and we should make those arguments. But we need to compare and contrast where we are. For instance, in Northern Ireland, households would pay up to 10 times as much for local services as what we pay in the Republic. And the amount of money that we get through our business communities are significant. But we have to acknowledge that the economy has grown while the pandemic has existed. And some companies and some ratepayers have done significantly well. And I know as a council we're going to examine that. The proposal that Councillor Finn had put forward tonight was for a variation of 0.1% of the overall budget, and would have seen most businesses in this city paying an additional €12 per year. And it would have been very modest. It wasn't in the factor rates increase at all. It was re-establishing a level that existed in 2019. And I think we need to see where the money can be across the city to better balance our books. That said, while we have the funding system we have, I'm proud that my own party in government has provided significant funding in the last year and will do so in the next year on important projects that Green Party ministers are in office in terms of pedestrianisation, in terms of segregated cycleways, in terms of parklets, in terms of tourism spending on places like Elizabeth Fort, and in influencing housing policy in terms of accommodation. But we should aspire to local government funding that is largely determined within the local authority areas themselves by elected local councillors. And this means making decisions about where the money comes from, asking householders to pay accordingly, asking ratepayers to pay accordingly, and then having the courage of convictions to seeing that money spent throughout the city. We can't depend on the goodwill of whatever government is in place at any given time and whatever national circumstances that are prevailing. We have to run our own ship to the best circumstances that we have shown ourselves capable of doing. That when the resources are there, this is a very good, very effective council. We need more independence in how we acquire that funding and how we spend it. That's an argument for places other than here, but we can take pride that we're doing a good job for this city. And I believe that this council should adopt this budget as it's being presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Sorry, now I'm just trying to see the list here. Councillor Olin Ring, please.
And just to start it off, I'd like to echo what's been said about John and Barry and Councillor Sean Martin and the Finance Committee for the meetings of the last number of weeks. And to be fair, as a new councillor, I found it very, very transparent, and it was just to compliment them and the Chief Executive as well on the effort of putting the budget together. I suppose it's a bit of a tale of two narratives in a sense. There's the overall figure which is increasing, but as has been highlighted by my colleague and others, Councillor McNugent, you have a situation where we see cuts of up to 1.5 million in what I would term bread and butter areas. You know, the day-to-day running of the council, as was said, your lining or signing your roads, your housing maintenance, your footpaths. And I suppose it also comes in the context of homeowners revaluing their homes recently and probably seeing their properties increase in value by up to 40 and 50% as a result of land and property inflation. And they may find themselves paying more depending on which band they fall into next year, and then for less day-to-day services, as I see it. It comes in the context of COVID, and like I said, look, there was fantastic effort by everyone to try to make a fantastic budget and a budget that we can all be happy with. But I don't think in the context of us emerging from austerity period and a once in a lifetime, once in 100 years pandemic, I don't think it should be beyond the remit of government to step in here and to look after the second city of the state. And I suppose one of the things that my eyes are drawn to in terms of the finance of the council, at the end of last year, we had 3.4 million outstanding in derelict site taxes, and as of July, 155,000 was collected. Now, I'd love to see a more aggressive approach in terms of dereliction. I think that there's more money out there. I think that there's many sites could be added to the register for future years, and I think that it could act as a very, very good stick and to promote development, but also as a revenue for local councils. So, unfortunately, I won't be supporting tonight's budget. But Gurumil Magat Ardvera.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ring. Councillor Kieran McCarthy, please.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. I have to say there's a great depth across the activities of the various directorates of the council, and I think all our directors bring a level of openness, listening and hard work ethic, which is warranted and very welcome in these challenging times. Despite the cuts, there is still much work being pursued as presented in the budget book, as well as many opportunities being mined down into. COVID has drawn us into a worrying time about finances, but it's clearly showed the resilience of this organisation as well. I think the turning around of the various government financial stimuli by this organisation in very short timeframes has been impressive. And certainly, Lord Mayor, 24 months ago, no one was predicting aspects such as the pedestrianisation of 17 streets and urban spaces, and the strong ramping up of work on walking and cycling in our city, and the Greenway projects in particular. But we must not let that momentum on improving the urban fabric and environment slow down, but keep the pressure on and keep up the collaborations with traders and citizens effective and positive. And perhaps the only certainty that goes with next year is that there will be undoubtedly be further financial challenges. But it is important that we keep advancing and preparing Part 8, whether that's for housing or roads. I do feel that we have 3 strong government cabinet ministers from Cork, and I strongly think that we need a councillor, Microsoft Teams meeting with Minister McGrath and deeper, to run over this council's ambitions and challenges, especially in operations in the short term. What I learned from intervening with Minister Eamon Ryan and his team's meeting with us last year is that we should not assume as a council that all of the cabinet as relevant committees are au fait with this council's work. I think it is important financial opportunities are seized, that we keep hunting for them. I think the financial tap to local authorities has certainly improved. I think the bottle is half full, but we still have another half a bottle to fill. I think certainly, Lord Mayor, if you empower a local authority such as Cork City Council, it will deliver in spades. I want to thank Councillor Sean Martin, John Hallahan and all of the finance team for their work, and I look forward to seeing the implementation of the work programme for 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Deirdre Ford, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. May I start off by thanking John Hannon and his team and all the staff of Cork City Council and the executive, of course, under Doherty, for the work that they have worked with, for the way that they have worked with us in collaborative mode to try and get this job done tonight. Any woman in Cork City will tell you how difficult it is to balance a budget. And we, I suppose, are trying to do the same, albeit on a much grander scale. And of course, there are competing interests. It's very important that we have confidence in our future. The second city, with huge development to take place. And indeed, I took a walk around the city the other day, and I was simply amazed at what has been done. And sometimes we take for granted all these changes, very often delivered by the private sector, but certainly in collaboration with the local authority. And we need to ensure that the core, the Cork City Centre, is a welcoming place and a vibrant place to keep the whole of the city alive. But again, of course, we are competing with the suburbs. And in my own case, out in the Douglas Rochestown area or in the East Ward, we have many projects that are either halfway through or in the pipeline, such as the bridge over Ballybrack, the South Douglas Road N40, the Grange Road to Tremore Valley Park, and so on. But we still need work in terms of Rochestown Road, Coach Hill, Clarkshill, and I'm looking forward to seeing some action on those next year. I'm also reminded about the extent of the budget, and could we do a synopsis of what we are doing in the community newsletter? Because I think it was Des Cahill said people out there don't realise the complexity and the tiny things and the big things that are being done. And I think if we could put it into the community newsletter, albeit in a synopsis form, it would be very relevant to people to know where their money is going. We did an awful lot of work in terms of climate, housing, roads and community, and we will do more. I'm particularly delighted that the money of 300k is for the local area committees. This is where we start, that the councillors can have control in their own areas over a certain amount of the budget. I just want to say again, all the councillors, no matter which party they came from, we all work constructively. And I commend each and every one of you, even though we can't support each other all the time in terms of motions. I think collaboration is the way forward to drive Cork City to be the best city it can be and take on all comers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ford. Councillor John Maher, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Before I start, can I take the opportunity just to wish Councillor Fiona Ryan well after her surgery. And then moving on, just to thank Brian, John, and in particular to Councillor Sean Martin. Again, regardless of parties, I really am blown away, Sean, by how you pulled us all together. You listened, and you got something delivered, you know. And it's really, as I said, I'm blown away by you, because no matter what I asked for, there was yeses, there was no's, but there was engagement, and there was open and honesty, and everything was transparent. And I think from talking to my own colleagues at the conference over the weekend, that's not happening in every other council. So to Sean, thanks a million. I agree with Councillor Fiona Ryan in a lot of respects with regards the power that local government has, but I suppose we're left with the conundrum. We can only play the hand we're dealt. So while I am frustrated with the minister in particular for local government, who didn't respond to me, and I've contacted him well before it was mentioned at a meeting on Teams between the Finance and Estimates Committee, it just shows maybe what they do think of local government to say that we can't get a response. Everywhere else was supported throughout throughout COVID. Individuals, families, businesses. That's brilliant. I'm in favour of all that. But we were also relied upon the most as a local authority to set up first response, and we did all that, and we came out the other side. And I just think that it worked last year, and they're not funding us this year. But not to get a response is actually just it's disgusting, to be honest. I am going to support this budget, however, because we look down through things. We look down through sports grants, 400,000. That's our community. There are teams, there are clubs, there are organisations. Where the tiny towns, the arts grants, the local budgets, 300,000. What that means in the North East Ward, we will have the first ability swing in Cork City. Our playgrounds, our parks, benches, bins. We have traffic calming that we all go on about. We delivered that last year, and by giving us 300,000, we can push that on again. So, as I said, I really do expect a bit more from national government, but I'm happy to support it tonight. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Maher. Councillor Ryan, I was unaware you were in hospital. I wish you all the best, a speedy recovery. Councillor John Sheehan, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and likewise I'd like to echo those comments. Best wishes to Councillor Ryan. I'd like to thank the Chair of the Finance Committee, Lord Mayor, and John Halloran, and all the officials who they've done a huge amount of work in this. I know it's a big challenge every year, but certainly this year with the expanded city boundary and COVID and everything, I think it posed a unique challenge, and I think they certainly rose to the challenge. As Councillor Boyle said, Lord Mayor, this is a budget of nearly £250 million, as befits a city of Cork's ambition. And I think it does an awful lot of very, very positive things in the city in terms of housing, in terms of development, in terms of building up our infrastructure, and all that, you know, as we hope to develop the city. As Councillor Cahill said, you know, there's an awful lot happening in the last few years, probably much more so than happened in the last 10 years. And our funding, Lord Mayor, as many speakers have said, is made up of many bits, you know, rates, central funding, local funding, charges that we have within the city. And I suppose, and also the LPT, and it beholds on us as city councillors. We may have reservations on how local government is funded and structured, but it also beholds on us to have a responsibility in terms of delivering a budget. The LPT tax, which I know some parties voted for and some parties against, but you know, that delivered 1.9 million to the city, but particularly, as Councillor Maher said, it delivers it to the local areas, which we can invest a lot of it back into our communities and through the Sports Capital Grant. And that was a decision. It's not necessarily the most popular decision to make, but it's a decision that should be made. You know, and we can't always be saying, oh, we should get more from central government. You know, we have a responsibility to look at how we're going to manage our affairs as well, you know, and if people don't like the budget, they're certainly free to put in amendments, and that's the nature of local democracy. But also we have to look at how we're going to manage the city, and that's responsibility on us as city councillors. As Councillor Ford said, we all work in the best interests of the city, not in terms of national issues. We may all lobby our own different groupings and parties, but our job as city councillors is to work for the betterment of the city, and sometimes that involves taking challenging choices, but they're choices I feel that should be made, and should be made for the best long-term interests of the city, and that's why I'm supporting the budget. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Dr. John. Last speaker I see here is Councillor Tony Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to echo the sentiments and good wishes to all the staff under John Hallahan and particularly the CEO in terms of preparing the budget, and to my colleague Councillor Sean Martin in terms of the workload that has been put before us over the last number of weeks, and best wishes to Councillor Ryan. Lord Mayor, I've been reading through this document and over the last couple of nights, like everybody else has, and in fact going through other budgets since I came into council, and there's a number of things that strikes me in this budget. One is an increase in payroll of 4.8 million for our council staff. So this is a budget for workers. To have that increase for our staff is an incredible amount of money, and easily annually so by our staff and the workers. So this is an opportunity for people to vote for workers in terms of 4.8 million for staffing. I'm looking at mortgage to rent in terms of looking after people who ran into difficulty with their mortgages. Many years ago, I ran into difficulties with my mortgage, starting off a very young family, and there wasn't many avenues for us to be supported. And I see here that there is funding available to make sure that people can be looked after in terms of when they fall into arrears with their mortgages, and the council come in and help them. I see about the young people here in this budget, looking after our sports, looking after our arts, looking after our community grants. In my own area here, St. Vincent's GA Club get huge support in the Pearshing and many others. Now, not only that, but through the regeneration programme, there's huge support to GA and to young people playing sports, soccer, and all of that, all of the other sporting facilities that's available. Incredible work being given by the Cork City Council, and again under Sean Martin with the sports committee. I see, road traffic calming, roads resurfacing, and it'd be interesting to see in the next year where all the motions will come from in terms of putting down motions to get places to get resurfacing done. I think now is the time. If you want to put a motion down, put your motion down now and vote for the budget, because one follows the other. This is how you do it. We're directors of the city, and this is how you do it. You vote for the budget. You vote for what you want, what the people want. And to be honest with people, to say that if you want your road resurfaced, well, it has to be done through the budget, and this is how you do it. I also see, Lord Mayor, in terms of the Tidy Town grants and many others, and the local area committees. I think this is a new departure for Cork City Council, and we see also the work that was rolled out under the 11 million loan that was steered through when I was Lord Mayor of Cork, and we see the benefit of that. But it has to be paid back, and tonight is the night to look after that. So under all those headings, I won't keep very long, Lord Mayor. I think this is an opportunity to vote for all those areas in terms of what we want to do for our people. Good, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tony Fitzgerald. Councillor Lorna Bowe, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I agree with the previous councillors about the importance of public services, and that we would revenue raise for funding those public services. I still don't accept the idea that we get plenty of money from central government, because we don't, and that's what all of the research advises, that we don't, particularly in comparison with our OECD comparators. So that's just not true. I suppose I'm happy enough with this budget, but I do have one reservation about it, and that is to do with the rates, because as Councillor Sheehan and Councillor Fitzgerald advised, we did put in an amendment, and it was rejected, to increase the rates by 0.03%. On businesses, which would restore it back to the 2019 levels, but also the rates haven't been moved in about 10 years. So, and given that they make up 40% of our income, it's just interesting to me that we can't charge an additional €12 a year to businesses, And yet what we can do is that we can, put up the property tax. And, as someone who has advocated for that, I think there's a bit of a problem there, because generally taxation needs to be seen to be fair, and that's something that I think I've a bit of a reservation about, that we can't actually, change the rate system in such a way that smaller businesses pay lower rates and larger businesses pay larger rates. I welcome the piece in the budget that suggests that we will look at that. But to be honest, I think this year was actually the year to do it. So, that's my reservation on it. I hope that we'll be having a different conversation next year about this. But apart from that, we need to be running expansionary budgets as local government, because the project of neoliberalism over decades has been taking power from us and from the state in general. If we can give discounts to developers and we're not going to go near rates, that makes me unhappy about asking for additional local property tax, to be honest. So I'll vote in favour of this budget, but I suppose I'm just laying down a marker for next year that we might have a different conversation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bogue. That's it. Oh no, Councillor Terry Shannon, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll be brief. Again, like others, I want to thank the various John Hallahan and his team, and the CE and our team, and indeed John Martin, my colleague, for the tremendous work that we all saw that was undertaken. And indeed my own group, we went through, the Fianna Fáil group went through the various codes and looked at various issues that we were concerned with, and we got involved in the process, which I think is very important, Lord Mayor. I find I think this is my 23rd budget. I've said in many budgets before that I've never voted for a budget that I liked. There was never everything in it. But, as someone said earlier on, you play the hand you're given. We get involved in the process. We don't like what management are proposing, so we propose alternatives, and we get involved in the process. And the book as presented tonight reflects that process. And what strikes me as odd is those councillors who are voting against it, some who it seems to be a badge of honour that I vote against the budget, because as has been said, if you vote against the budget, you vote against services. You can't in one hand say I'm for resurfacing, or I'm for traffic calming, and don't provide the finance for it. Because if we all took the leaf out of that book, there'd be no council. And if there was no council, there'd be no local area committees, so there'd be no local area fund. There'd be no arts fund. There'd be no sports fund. There'd be no community funds. So, I mean, people talk about democracy. In the end of the day, democracy is about ensuring that we have, that we represent our areas, and that we provide the finance within our gift to those areas as fairly as we can. And we do that every year. And as has been said, community art grants, nearly 260,000 euros. Community grants, 270,000 euros. Amenity grants, 200,000 euros. The DPGs, 1.2 million in disabled persons grant. Vital services for people in their homes, to keep people at home. These are all services that we provide through the funding that we either get nationally, and John Martin has outlined the substantial funds that are coming centrally, but also what we raise ourselves. And when people talk about democracy, if you're afraid, as many people seem to be, to raise funds locally because you might get a berating by someone at the shop or out in the pub because you put up my property tax, well, then maybe we should pack up and hand it to the government and let them run the city. But we don't, because we're taking on responsibility. And the one thing about the local property tax is, for the first time ever, we have ring-fenced that money for our local committees. And it'll be the discretion of everybody, those who didn't vote for the budget as well as those who did, to spend that money locally. But there's no point in us looking for money that we're going to get grants for, because that's only superseding the money that we could spend elsewhere. So, Lord Mayor, I commend this budget. I think it's very important that we would support it. I think I'd ask everybody to support it on the basis of it's fair. And I think when you think of the fact that we're coming out of a massive pandemic, we're not doing too badly. We need more, of course. We'd love to have more, but you know, we're not doing that badly. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shannon. Okay, thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on now for the service divisions to be considered. I need a proposer and a seconder for each of these. So the first service division, which is presented in the book, and it is Service Division A, Housing and Building. Can I get a proposer and a seconder for this?
I propose Lord Mayor John Martin.
Oh, everyone came in there at once. Apologies, Councillor John Sheehan and Councillor Sean Martin. Thank you.
I second you.
Okay, can I get a proposer and seconder for Service Division B, Roads, Transportation and Safety?
I propose Lord Mayor Des Cahill.
I'll second that, Lord Mayor, Mayor Rose Desmond.
Councillor Des Cahill and Councillor Mayor Rose Desmond. Thank you. Can I get a proposer for item C, Water Services?
I propose Lord Mayor.
I second that, Lord Mayor Joe Kavanagh.
Seconded by Joe proposers. Thank you. Service Division D, Development Management, proposer and seconder.
I propose that, Lord Mayor.
Fergal Dennehy and Deirdre Ford. Thank you. Item E, Environmental Services.
I propose
Lord Mayor.
Proposed Dan Boyle and seconded Joe Kavanagh. Thank you. Item F, Recreation and Amenity, proposed.
Kieran McCarthy, Lord Mayor.
I'll second that, Lord Mayor.
Kieran McCarthy and John Mayer. Thank you. Item G, Agriculture, Education and Welfare.
Sean Martin proposed Lord Mayor.
Sean Martin.
I'll second it, Lord Mayor. Fergal Dennehy.
Fergal, thank you. Item H, Miscellaneous Services.
I propose that, Lord Mayor.
Councillor
Callahan.
Thank you. Item J, Operational Support, Central Management.
Proposed by
Mayor Rose Desmond.
Colette, seconded.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, excellent. There are final motions to be voted on, and there's I don't know, 2 seconds. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So adopting the budget at the draft Cork City budget as presented for the local financial year ending 31st of December 2022 as set forth in tables A to F, therefore be and is hereby adopted, proposed by Councillor Sean Martin and seconded by Councillor Des Cahill. Do we have an agreement on that?
Agreed.
Vote all. Vote all.
Optimist was going to say, yeah.
Thank
you. I know. Nice to meet you. Thanks very much. Vote all.
Corlor Kenneth O'Flynn.
Against.
Corlor John Maher.
For.
Corlor Ted Tynan.
Against.
Corlor Joe Kavanagh.
For.
Corlor Oliver Moran.
For.
Corlor Jack Johan.
For.
Corlor Tony Fitzgerald.
For.
Corlor Mick Nugent.
Winner.
Corlor John Sheehan.
For.
Corlor Kenneth Collins.
Winner.
Corlor Fiona Ryan.
Against.
Corlor Damien Boylan.
For.
Corlor Des Cahill.
For.
Corlor Lorna Bogue.
Over.
Corlor Mary Rose Desmond.
For.
Corlor Kieran McCarthy.
For.
Corlor Terry Shannon.
For.
Corlor Deirdre Ford.
For.
Corlor Mick Finn.
For.
Corlor Dan Boyle.
Over.
Corlor Sean Martin.
For.
Corlor Shane O'Callaghan.
For.
Corlor Paddy Deneen.
For.
Corlor Fiona Cairns.
Against.
Corlor Fergal Dennehy.
For.
Corlor Derry Canty.
For.
Corlor Colette Finn.
For.
Ordvera.
In favour.
Corlor Garrett Kelleher.
In favour.
Corlor Thomas Maloney.
For.
And Corlor Olin Ring.
Igwina.
Thank you very much, councillors. The vote has just been tallied there. Thank you. Thank you very much. For to adopt the budget, the draft Cork City Council budget is presented for the local financial year ending the 31st of December 2022. 24 for, 7 against, 1 abstention, and 1 gugu gaga. So the budget is adopted. My apologies.
That's all right.
Sorry, 24 for and 7 against. Thank you. So the budget is adopted. We have 2 pieces of housekeeping here now, just that the annual rate on valuation in accordance with the budget as so adopted and set forth in tables A to F. Therefore, the general annual rate on valuation set forth in tables A, therefore, is hereby determined to be 74.75. Can I get a proposal for that, please?
I propose, Councillor Deneen.
I second, Lord Mayor.
I second that.
Thank you, Councillor Deneen and Councillor Terry Shannon. Thank you very much. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And the last item, just a resolution in accordance with section 104 of the Local Government Act 2001, that the Council hereby approves the over expenditure for 2021 as outlined. Can I get a proposer and seconder for that? Proposed by Councillor Garrett Kelleher and seconded by Councillor Sean Martin. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. So the budget has been adopted until the fiscal year of 2022. I'd like to thank the elected members of Cork City Council and the small member of Cork City Council in the top right hand corner of my screen. Thank you very much. And I now call the meeting to a close.
Lord Mayor, sorry, just before we go, I know this is, can we propose a vote of condolences to former Lord Mayor Michael Herden and the deputy's wife?
Yes, okay.
I second that, Lord Mayor. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. On the death of the former Lady Mayoress. Thank
Now,
you.
Vera.
Yes,
Vera.
Yes, Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, could we just maybe just record in the minutes just acknowledgement of fairness, you know, this morning, Alderman Ty Barry centenary. We could just acknowledge the centenary this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nugent. Okay, thank you very much all, and I hope you have a good evening. God bless.
Thank you, Mayor.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well done, Lord Mayor.
You what?
Thanks, Lord Mayor.